I didn't catch my wife because I'm clever. I caught her because our garage door emails me like a tattletale hall monitor every time someone uses a guest code. We bought the smart opener last year after a package went missing, and I got sucked into the kind of YouTube review rabbit hole that makes you believe technology can fix trust. Can't, by the way, but it can forward you a receipt of your own blind spots. I set up a few temporary codes for deliveries and the dog walker. One of them, guest code 4, was for FedEx, a code I forgot about the way you forget a spare key under a rock you're sure no one will ever look under. On a Thursday at 2:11 p.m., my phone dinged during a Zoom where my manager was using the word leverage, like we all got a memo redefining it to mean anything. The notification sat there, garage opened by guest code 4. I stared and told myself it was nothing, a phantom ping, a glitch in the matrix, a bored FedEx driver rehearsing old access codes for fun. 2 minutes later, the garage closed by phone number ending in 8837. I'm not a detective, but I'm also not an idiot. The only person on our street with an 8837 is Tyler, the HOA president, the man who wears salmon shorts like a personality trait and calls everyone boss, as if it's a spell that makes annoying things sound friendly. My wife had left that morning in her hot yoga uniform and told me she'd be across town from 1 to 4 because, if you don't sweat like a sinner, you're not doing it right. Meanwhile, my garage was testifying under oath that someone with Tyler's number went in and out of my house during the exact window my wife claimed to be sweating at a studio with a mural of a lotus. I texted her, "How's yoga?" She fired back, "Sweaty." 20 minutes later, the garage emailed again, and the feeling of falling without moving spread through my chest in a way that made my coffee taste metallic. I pulled up the hallway cam feed we keep pointed at the mudroom because our beagle once discovered gravity and flour at the same time. The camera doesn't see anything scandalous. It sees feet and hears laughter and records the kind of domestic background noise you stop noticing when your life is behaving. At 3:49 p.m. it captured shoes shuffling on tile, a low male laugh, and a silhouette in a window that doesn't belong to me. 5 minutes later, my wife walked into frame alone with a reusable bottle that fogged like it had just come out of the fridge instead of a yoga studio, hair up in the post-workout ponytail she uses when she's done making a point about effort. She tapped the thermostat, tilted her head like the air had wronged her, and disappeared toward the bedroom. I sat there in my office pretending to absorb a product roadmap while my insides arranged a crime drama no one asked for. When she got home from class at 4:20, she kissed my cheek and launched into a story about a coughing woman in the corner and how the instructor said, "Shin bones like chins," and how the sign in the parking lot is a scam. It was a very detailed lie, which I learned later is a thing liars do when they want to wrap you in story the way you might wrap a bruise you don't want touched. I didn't confront her that night. I let the garage feed me timestamps like a slow 4 drip. I scrolled back through previous Thursdays and found a pattern sturdy enough to stand on. Guest code 4 at 2-something, close by 3:40. Something, sometimes an 8837 in the mix like a signature. It had been 3 weeks. Maybe 4 if you count the day it opened and closed twice. I poured bourbon that sat on my tongue like static and tried to decide which version of myself I wanted to be when I walked into the living room. The guy who explodes and gives his neighbors a story, the guy who plays dumb and starts building a case, or the guy who leaves quietly in the middle of the night and lets the silence do the work. What I did was nothing. I stacked the evidence in a folder called Truth, because naming things you don't control is the only control you get sometimes. Saturday, I bought a $14 voice recorder from a hardware store that believes in yesterday. Not because I wanted gotcha audio, but because fear makes you practical in strange directions. I told myself if she tried to spin it, I would have more than a feeling and a handful of emails. I parked 2 blocks away the following Thursday and let my phone narrate my own house to me. At 2:10 p.m., garage opened by guest code 4. At 2:11, garage closed by phone number ending 8837. I walked the long way around, past trash bins that smelled like last week and a kid's scooter thrown in the grass, to the side yard gate. I could have walked straight in. Instead, I stood by the mudroom window and angled my phone until the hallway cam filled the screen. I watched shadows become people and people become voices. A man saying, "Next Thursday?" and my wife saying, "If I survive the HOA barbecue," and then laughter and then quiet, and then the particular sound of people re-entering a day they put down for a minute. I walked around to the front and sat on the porch step, not because I was waiting to pounce, but because my legs forgot how to go inside. She opened the door and flinched. "Jesus," she said, hand to chest in a small theater of surprise. "What are you doing out here?" I asked how class was with a voice I didn't recognize, and she lied automatically, the way you say your order at a drive-thru you've been to 100 times. I asked if she wanted to sit with me for a second, and she said sure, then didn't sit because sitting is agreeing, and we both knew what we were agreeing to if she did. I started with the garage. I read the timestamps out loud like scripture. I asked if hot yoga sends texts from a number ending in 8837. I asked if guest code 4 was a stretch I didn't know. She sat down. Crying is loud in some people and silent in others. My wife is a silent crier. It makes you lean in and feel bad for the person whose interior is breaking in a library voice. She nodded once when I asked if it was Tyler, and the sprinkler next door clicked on like the neighborhood wanted to underline it. I didn't yell. I didn't say words that would make me win a comment section. I said, "How long? And why him? And, do you remember that I'm a person?" She said she felt invisible. I said I handed you a mortgage and a dog and 29 different versions of my attention you never saw because I didn't wrap them in compliments first. None of it fixed anything, obviously. We went inside because crying on a step feels like asking the street to hold your intimacy. We sat apart on the couch like two people in a waiting room. She said it had been a month. "It was just flirting before," she added, which is like saying there was only a little fire before the fire started. I asked if Tyler's wife knew. She shook her head and said she would tell her. I didn't believe she would. Tyler texted my wife while we were talking, "You good?" And I was impressed by the combination of stupidity and optimism it takes to hit send in that moment. I replied from her phone, "He is. You won't be." I didn't want to be that guy. But I was, for one line, and I'm not going to apologize for it now. Then I did 3 things. I screenshotted everything. I emailed a lawyer whose website says, "We meet people on the worst day of their life and try to make the next one half as bad." And I walked to Tyler's house, which is 3 doors down, and painted the color of optimism. He answered with a smile I have only ever seen on men who are selling you memberships. I told him to stop using my code, to stop texting my wife, and to tell his before I did, and briefly considered how it would feel to punch a man in boat shoes. He started with bro, and I said we were not that word and never had been. He did the "it's not what you think," and then heard himself and shut up because the universe doesn't let you use that sentence unironically anymore. His wife, Megan, knocked on our door at 8 the next morning with their toddler on her hip and a stack of printed messages she had hole-punched and binder-clipped like she was trying to organize the chaos with office supplies. We sat at the table while my wife stayed in the guest room, and Megan read me a few of the kinds of texts that make you want to invent a new word for insulted. "He doesn't deserve you." "Thursday is my favorite day." And the one where he asked if our code was the same as last week like he was confirming a reservation. Megan cried once, quickly, then put it away because she had a kid on her hip and a day to get through. She said she was leaving him for now, maybe for good, and that she wanted me to hear it from her, not the HOA group or Tyler's attempt at spin. I told her I was sorry, and I meant it in the way you mean it when you've been hurt enough to recognize how heavy the word actually is. The lawyer met me at 11 and spoke like a person who has seen houses split in half and watched people survive. He said I didn't have to hate my wife to leave her. He said I could love the parts of her that made sense and still refuse to live in the part that didn't. He asked if I wanted space or finality. I said I didn't trust myself to decide anything in a week where my garage had a starring role, and he said that was a good sign, which made me laugh in a way that wasn't joyful but wasn't bitter either. When I got home, my wife had written me a letter on printer paper, 5 pages of I felt unseen, and it started with banter and I hate who I am in this story and I'm sorry in different fonts. There was a line that said Tyler was an escape, not a destination. And it hurt in an oddly specific way because it explained nothing and everything at once. She wasn't trying to get somewhere. She was trying to get away. We tried therapy. I don't have a sophisticated opinion about therapy except that it helps if you tell the truth and it doesn't if you perform it like a talent show. The counselor asked what our marriage would look like if it survived, and I said, a house with fewer places to hide. And my wife said, a life where I don't have to flirt with dynamite to feel alive. and the counselor nodded like we had handed her puzzle pieces that might fit with sanding. We set rules because rules make people feel like they're doing something architecture-like. Full transparency with phones without policing, weekly date night we actually went to, a ban on the phrase "you always," and a permission slip for either of us to say "I need space" without it being read as "I am leaving." For a while, it looked like redemption if you squinted. She blocked Tyler in front of me and sent his wife a screenshot because closure prefers visuals. He resigned from the HOA in a Notes app announcement so bland you could spread it on toast. The barbecue got canceled. The neighborhood page said prayers 13 times and a woman named Linda weaponized a Bible verse at the speed of light. Rebuilding is less a montage and more a series of small, unglamorous choices. I made dinner and she ate it. She cried at 10:13 p.m. and I didn't ask if it was about him because grief is complicated even when you caused it. We took a walk and felt like two actors pretending to be a couple for a role that demanded chemistry we couldn't find. There were moments that felt almost like us. Laughing at a dog wearing shoes, bumping hips at the sink, the way her feet find mine under a blanket when she falls asleep. There were also landmines. A late text that made my chest cinch, a pause before an answer that had nothing to do with guilt and everything to do with a brain learning to stop checking for fire, the way she looked at the guest room door sometimes like it had a name. I became both softer and more suspicious, which is the worst recipe for rest. She became earnestly transparent and performative sometimes in the same breath, which made me hate what the situation was doing to both of us. I deleted the Smart Garage app because my nervous system didn't need another ding to rehearse disaster. I reverted to a dumb remote with a nick in the plastic and felt better in the way people feel better when they leave a casino and breathe air that doesn't count their money for them. Megan and I became allies in a very unromantic adult way. We texted logistical updates like weather reports. Tyler moved into a rental with beige carpet, which feels poetic if you squint. Megan found a lawyer with a spine. I learned how to say no comment to neighbors who wanted details under the guise of concern. My mother, who has been married to my father since before email existed, called and said marriage is not magic and people are people, and if I stayed or left, she would show up with lasagna and the same amount of love. My friend Jake, who usually solves everything with jokes, came over and sat on my couch without making a single one, which is how you know a person knows the difference between relief and dismissal. We lasted like that for 2 months, which is to say we did not explode or fully heal. The counselor asked us to make a choice, not final but directional, because stalling is a decision that rots from the inside. My wife said she wanted to be with me in a way that did not require monitoring or penance. I wanted that too, with a part of me that was still busy sweeping glass. One Sunday morning, she sat on the bed with her hands flat on her thighs and told me she was still not all the way here. It wasn't a threat or a confession. It was a weather report from a mind that had maybe left the building and couldn't quite find the exit back. I appreciated the honesty and also felt like I was being asked to hold my breath indefinitely. I told her I couldn't live in a house where the air was always almost oxygen. She nodded and cried and did not beg, which made me respect her in a way I didn't expect to feel again. We filed. The paperwork is as romantic as a parking ticket. We sold the house because kitchens don't deserve to be trauma museums. I kept the dog. She took the good Dutch oven. We divided plants by survival chance and memories by which ones didn't turn mean in your mouth when you said them. I moved into an apartment with a brick view and a fire escape where a weed decided to audition as a flower. I ran until my lungs burned in a good way, which is different from the bad way your chest burns when a stranger's number lives in your hallway. I learned to cook eggs at a reasonable heat. I called my mother more. I bought a navy jacket with no duct tape on the cuff and laughed alone in a fitting room like a sitcom audience. I stopped waking at 2:10 on Thursdays. Some weeks I missed her. Some weeks I missed the idea of marriage more than the person. On one dumb afternoon, I watched the hallway cam archive and cried for the man who believed his house was a container for a future that could not spill. On a better afternoon, I deleted the archive and kept a clip of the dog sneezing because over time I decided I prefer videos that do not try to tell me who I am. I ran into Tyler once outside a gym. He looked smaller, which is what shame does, it launders people poorly. He started to apologize and I put my hand up, not because I wanted to win, but because I didn't want to spend any more of my time in a conversation with a man who had stolen time I didn't get back. I said, Be better. Because it's a sentence that works even if a person doesn't know how yet. He nodded, and I walked away with no adrenaline left, which is the best kind of justice. Nothing buzzing, just absence where noise used to be. I saw Megan at the grocery store months later. We hugged with the tenderness of people who survived a wave that knocked them down and learned their legs again. Her kid said hi to my dog and asked if he could be a dinosaur when he grew up, and I said yes because I am not in the business of stopping joy before it starts. I started dating a woman named Mara whose superpower is teaching children to read and adults to breathe. I told her the whole story not on a first date like a confessional, but when it made narrative sense, like you reveal a scar after the sun has gone down and you're both already talking about real things. She didn't flinch and didn't congratulate me. She said, "Thank you for telling me before I had to learn it from how you flinch." That sentence put a light on in a room in my chest. I thought I'd boarded up. We are slow. We are ordinary. We go to the farmer's market and buy too many tomatoes, and I make a salad that is basically an apology to all the bad salads I've ever made. When I check my phone at dinner, I tell her why without being asked, because old reflexes die and new ones need practice. She keeps spare sheets in the dryer so they're always warm, and if you want a metaphor for the kind of love I want to live inside, it's that preparation for comfort, not drama. If there's a lesson, it isn't a neat one. Smart gadgets will not save you. They can, however, keep you from gaslighting yourself into insanity when the people you trust behave like strangers. Evidence is not peace. Peace is built at a smaller, more boring scale. Watering plants before they droop. Saying "I'm scared" before you say "I'm mad." Learning to want the kind of life where a Thursday afternoon is only a Thursday afternoon. Forgiveness and reconciliation are cousins who do not have to attend the same parties. You can wish someone well from a great distance and not invite them back into the driver's seat of your days. You can love who you were with them and also love who you are without them. And you can keep a dog who thinks you invented walking and let him remind you daily that moving forward is not a metaphor but a literal act that takes legs and patience. Sometimes I still think about guest code for like it's a character in a book I didn't want to read but couldn't put down. It shows up in dreams as a 4-digit number that opens any door, and I wake up annoyed and then amused that my subconscious thinks it's clever. I keep a small list on my kitchen table now, written in a pen that leaks if you push too hard. Buy the good coffee. Call Jake back. Text your mom your new address again because she keeps writing the old one on mail. Replace the batteries in the smoke detector on purpose, not when it beeps at 2 a.m. Tell Mara when your chest does that tight thing so she doesn't have to guess. Water the plant. Delete apps that make you breathe like prey. Sit on the fire escape and watch the sky change because it will without you and with you, and that fact is a comfort you can rely on. The list isn't profound. It's mine. It's how I keep from turning pain into personality, from turning suspicion into sport. If you're in the thick of it, if some device or receipt or intuition just handed you a version of your life you didn't plan for, breathe. Choose kindness without choosing self-erasure. Take screenshots if you need armor. Don't narrate your pain for people who love plot twists more than they love you. Don't make yourself smaller so someone else's appetite can fit. And if you can control nothing else, make your coffee the way you like it and your bed with sheets that are warm, and forgive the part of you that believed in a Thursday that wasn't true. You did not fail by trusting. They failed by breaking it. The garage can email whoever it wants. You get to decide who walks through your door.